Let's also hear now from Alison Barrett, who is the Climate Connection Project Director for the British Council and is joining us from Thailand. Alison, I know you have some people lined up here to help us bring the cultural relations approach to climate action to life, but more importantly to discuss what we need next. So we're incredibly excited to hear from you.
Hi everyone, good evening. It's 6 p.m. here in Thailand, but I'm really excited to be with you all. Thank you, Haja. It's so amazing to see what the teams have achieved over the last 2 years. Huge congratulations to them and to all of our partners. And just to remind you that those showcases were just a snapshot of the work we've been doing. There's many, many other programs that we haven't had a chance to talk about today. So do look at our website and find out more. So as Mark Stevens said at the very beginning of the program, climate change is largely the result of human action. It needs a human response. We won't get anywhere without changing mindsets, without making greater friendships that can enable us to create greater solutions together. We have to understand where other people are coming from and recognize that whatever we choose to do here in Thailand might impact somebody somewhere else in the world, perhaps in Sudan or in Pakistan, for example. So that's what a cultural relations approach means to me. It's about recognizing that culture is not only part of the problem, but it's part of the solution. It's about recognizing that we have to understand issues and get to the heart of those issues and find ways of communicating those issues really innovatively and clearly so that everyone understands how they might engage and how they might then support solutions moving forwards. It's about keeping people-to-people channels open when political channels might get more difficult. It's about bringing together stakeholders across generations, across disciplines, across cultures, across borders. It's about creating opportunities to convene and to build platforms for action. So I'm really, really fortunate to work for an organisation that does all of those things. We work with hundreds of countries around the world, and we've been present in those countries for many, many years. So we've been able to create relationships between individuals, between institutions, between societies, communities, and government, and play that kind of convening role to bring people together and connect organisations and institutions so they can find local solutions together. I'm joined today, though, by 3 amazing women leaders from organisations which represent the 3 pillars of the British Council's work: our culture work, our arts work, our language work, and our education work. I'm really, really happy they could join us today. So I'm going to start off by introducing Joanna Newman. Joanna Newman is the CEO of the Association of Commonwealth of Universities. Joanna, we met last in Glasgow. It's great to see you again virtually this time. Can I just ask you, first of all, could you tell us a little bit about the role that you think universities can play in raising the ambitions of COP26 or realising the ambitions of COP26?
Of course, but first I just want to thank you and all your colleagues for a really brilliant morning, a really inspiring morning. And actually, everything I think I'm probably going to say has already been said by different people in terms of the connectivity that we need, the importance of diversity, the importance of the voice of youth. All of that is implicit in what I'm going to say, I think. And I'm going to say that higher education is essential to climate action and climate change, and has demonstrated that by conducting basic scientific research, including blue sky research that asks questions with absolutely no answers now, but with the commitment from funding agencies and governments to provide funding to allow people to think about problems and then come up with solutions that will help in the next 10 or 20, 30 years. Producing innovative technologies, and we've seen some fantastic examples from some of the climate researchers and young people about innovation from schools all the way through to universities. Educating our citizens, you know, the crucial role of universities in creating a next generation of citizens who can question, who can challenge, who can do research, who can participate in civil society. Training professionals, CPD work is ongoing. You know, higher education is from cradle to grave in some ways, and engaging in public awareness. And in a way, I think the main points that I want to make are that university's central mission is exactly the same as its mission in climate change. It is there to educate the next generation. It is there to create new knowledge through the research that it does, both in an applied and a blue sky way. And it's there in innovation by its relationships and partnerships with the third sector and with industry. And that is the essential role of the university, whether it is in tackling climate or whether it is in any of the other 17 sustainable development goals and global challenges that we have. And I have some factoids as well, in the sense that, things are, in some ways, things are quite optimistic. UNESCO research has shown that environmental research has had the fastest growth rate, 45% of any discipline between 2015 and 19. So there is new science being funded and coming out, which will help COP26 and COP27 and beyond. 31% of publications between 17 and 19 involved international scientific collaboration, demonstrating cross-border collaboration, which we've seen so well today in all the various different international collaborations that organisations like the British Council, Association of Commonwealth Universities really want to foster. And increasing the delivery of education. So there's some fantastic examples here, for example, of mainstreaming climate education, but also in a number of different countries where all students coming into a university will have some element of climate education as part of their curriculum. And so that you can raise awareness and knowledge and give young people the tools to be able to make the challenges that they need to make themselves. Committing to carbon neutral, universities are great big communities of their own. And so, you have 1,099 institutions representing over 2 billion students who've joined the Race to Zero, a UN-led global campaign to rally leadership and action. But there are also smaller examples. Kenyatta, Strathmore University in Kenya runs on clean energy and has its own 600 kilowatt photovoltaic grid tier system. So there are hundreds of examples from my network. We have over 500 universities in 53 countries, so I'll try and contain my enthusiasm for all the amazing things that they do. But I'd also say that significant barriers still remain, and that's kind of what we also want to draw attention to. So, for example, varying resource levels and capacity in between the global north and global south. That is in research, that is in funding research, that is in the capacity for institutions in the global south to work equitably with organisations in the global north. And of course, the gross tertiary enrolment figures are actually changing and getting better, but they are still less than 8% in countries across sub-Saharan Africa, where you have a huge youth demographic and extraordinary potential. And if you heard from the voices we've heard today, and you think about all those other voices that should be heard and should be given the encouragement and support to come up with local solutions for issues that happen across the world, then you understand the importance of supporting higher education growth. And the other weak connection, I think some other people talked about weak connection between science policy and practice and science. The more journalists we can have, the more young people inspired at schools to go on to a career that explains science, that works across the arts and social sciences to actually help people understand. Just as we've seen in the health pandemic, health policy played an incredibly important role in educating people about COVID. We have to do exactly the same in science education. And again, finally, climate action is still not a funding priority. The topics related to environmental sustainable research, are underfunded. For example, life below water, life below land, receiving less than 25 billion between 2000 and 2013, compared with 280 billion US dollars for economic growth related research. So you can see there's a lot that we need to do. At the ACU, we have been really proud to partner with the British Council on the Commonwealth Futures climate research, which we'll hear a little bit more about, I think. But also we have a Commonwealth climate resilience network founded by the University of South Pacific, Fiji National, and the University of the West Indies. It now has over 178 researchers from across 26 countries who meet together. And we fund those the collaborations to an extent to help seed ideas that can then get picked up by their institutions and governments. We also are really proud of some of the work we've done in innovation. So, for example, the Circle programme, which has been going on for a long time, coming up with local solutions. So, for example, a weather app that helps farmers in remote areas get early warning signs when weather is going to happen, so that they can take action and help to protect their crops or their herds. And there are so many different examples of this. I'll just finish on the Blue Charter Fellowships that we funded over the last couple of years. Tackling ghost fishing in Rwanda, clearing up Port Elizabeth in South Africa, helping to educate public about rubbish and microplastic research, which is also part of the climate cohort research, which I think we'll hear a bit more about. So there is a lot of interventions that an international network like ours can make by convening people, bringing them together, by providing some seed funding for nascent ideas. But there's also a huge amount that needs to be done by all of us as active citizens within an educational ecosystem. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Joanna. And I think that just demonstrates that there's a lot more to the university and the education sector than research, which is obviously what many of us think of initially. So thank you for that very much. You talked about the importance of understanding the science, communicating the science and engaging with the science. And I'd like to turn to Jodie Gray, who's the CEO of English UK. Language is really critical, isn't it? Both the language we use to talk about the crisis, the language that we use to help people understand the crisis. Could you tell us a bit more about your work and the role of the English language teaching sector?
Sure, thank you, Alison, and thank you for the invitation to such an inspiring event. It's been brilliant to listen to all the projects that have been happening around the world. Yes, so English UK is the National Association of Accredited English Language Teaching Centres in the UK. We've got about 350 centres across the UK, all welcoming international students here to come and study the English language. And it's our mission to champion and advance UK English language teaching, to create a sector that transforms lives through learning. But that's only possible if we live in and work in a balance with our environment, and we're protecting our future and equipping students with the language and the skills that they need to face what is the greatest challenge of our time. So English UK has recently published an action plan, environmental action plan, called Turning UK ELT Green. And as a green UK ELT industry, we're not only looking at how we can cut our own emissions, turning away from fossil fuels, but we're also looking at how we can positively connect with environmental projects across the UK and embed sustainability into practice, from classroom to the canteen, to the school buildings, through our own conferences and events. The ELT industry in the UK we should speak up about environmental concerns, and we need to connect with the values of our staff and students. We need to be honest about the challenges that we face, and we are an industry that essentially is based on students travelling into the UK, often for short courses, and we need to be sincere in our efforts to overcome those challenges. But ultimately, Green UK ELT will help students understand interdependence and sustainability, experience the natural world, and feel empowered to address the biodiversity and climate crises. And when we went to publish this environmental action plan last year, we are coming off the back of the global pandemic that has had a massive impact on us all and had a really devastating impact on the UK's ELT industry. And we did face some pushback, and we were asked, why are you publishing this now? Why are you doing this? And we had a really, I think we had a really good think about that, and we involved an action group and had some great discussions within our industry. And we came up with some really strong reasons, I think, why it's so important for English UK, for the UK ELT sector, to be publishing its environmental action plan and then to be taking action on the basis of that plan. And the first reason is something that I've heard come up during the course of this event this morning, which is that everyone has a part to play, and that includes us. And secondly, that we are educators. Education is key to addressing climate change. We have a duty to equip our students, and we welcome 500,000 students to the UK every year to study English, with knowledge and the language that they need to face this enormous issue. And UK ELT can empower, motivate, and help people from around the world to take environmental action. We felt that we can make a difference. We're an international business. We have a sizable UK industry, and we have a wide sphere of influence. And we have the opportunity not only to change our own practice at English UK and within the wider UK ELT sector, but also to raise awareness among the thousands of students that come here, our agents, our international partners, our suppliers, our caterers, our homestay hosts, and all our other partners, both in the UK and around the world. We also found that students want green organisations and lessons. There has never been more concern about the planet or greater interest in protecting nature and improving our green credentials as an industry and talking about their interests, our students' interests, will not only attract students to our sector and to the UK ELT sector, but keep them engaged in our classrooms and with our activities. And lastly, we recognise that the UK is a major contributor to climate change. We're one of the richest and most carbon-intense countries, especially historically. It's therefore even more important that we as the UK ELT sector do something, and we take climate action and stop the worst effects of a crisis that's hitting the poorest people around the world, and lowest carbon countries the hardest. So after we had established that, yes, we have a role to play, and these are the reasons why, we then looked at how our sector might go about making a difference. And our approach was to first look at our own organisation, look at our own services and practices, our own events, what we do as an organisation, as English UK, starting with our leadership and working through every part of our business. And then the next phase is our member centres, so the English language teaching centres in the UK. And we're supporting them to include environmentally sustainable practice and climate action, and to help their English learners develop the skills, the knowledge, the language that they need to address this defining issue. And then we move into the wider circle, which is the wider industry, by raising awareness and supporting change across the sector, amplifying voices already speaking up about climate action, and running positive campaigns for change, and lobbying for policy that supports a green UK ELT sector. We're right at the beginning of our journey, so it's been super inspiring to hear from all of these projects that are already going on, and I'm looking forward to taking that back as we start to move forward and implement some of these action steps we have in our plan. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jodie. That's really great to hear, and I think really compelling reasons why the sector needs to be engaged with this issue. And I know that you're also looking closely at how UK ELT can learn from practices overseas and vice versa, and that's also really, really exciting. So finally, our last speaker in this segment today, I'd like to welcome Alison Tickell, who is the CEO of Julie's Bicycle and the founder of Julie's Bicycle, who really has ensured that culture is not missed, that it's very clearly on the map. Has a clear role to play in animating the science and engaging the public. But could you tell us a bit more, Alison, from your perspective, about the work that you do, but also how we can try and get culture more at the heart of the solution moving forwards?
Sure. Thanks so much, Alison. And also, I just want to repeat, as everybody has already said, what an incredible morning it's been. Really overwhelmingly extraordinary work. And I want to just thank everybody who's spoken and all the people who haven't spoken for their incredible contribution to making climate action possible, positive, and imbued with the kind of creativity and hope that we need so badly today. So massive thanks and appreciation. Alison, you ask why? Well, I think that really the work that really compels us at Julie's Bicycle and that we've been developing with the British Council is all about the fact that, in my view, I think that the climate crisis is in fact a cultural crisis. It's an incredibly overdue conversation to bring culture into the heart of climate solutions. And I would actually go so far as to say that climate action hasn't gone faster further because negotiating our collective responses to the really difficult truths of the climate crisis has been led by scientists, economists, politicians, bureaucrats, really many well-intentioned people, but who don't have the full panoply of tools and support that they need, because speaking and seeking out truths is fundamentally what the arts at their best are about. Shaping lifestyles, developing the stuff, designing to reinforce what we care about, our values, and build our economies is fundamentally what the creative industries are about. And crafting the past and the present into deeply meaningful symbols is what cultural heritage is about. So culture, the voices that haven't yet been involved to anything like the right degree in climate negotiations, culture that speaks of and to all of us, is a critical and perhaps the critical missing link in the climate conversation. My company, Jodie's Bicycle, was founded by the UK music industry in 2007. So quite a long time ago, and has been working across arts and culture internationally to try to build not just the case for culture to be deeply involved in climate negotiations, but actually to look at the skills. This has come up again and again today, to understand the skills, the knowledge, the kind of practical toolkits that we can bring to bear across culture that will actually change the way that we work. Because of course, the climate crisis isn't just something that's apart from us. It requires a systems change. And actually, I do believe very deeply that if we can change some of the systems, some of the basics around how we work within culture, because culture has got that exponential relationship to us as individuals, as communities, as society at large, we actually have that extra capacity, but also that additional responsibility to embody the values and the changes that we need, not just in what we say and how we think, but in what we do. So we've been unpicking that, and it has taken us right through many of the aspects of culture and the arts. And actually, like many of you have been saying today, we've landed in two places that speak very closely to each other. One is policy, and the other is around climate justice, and bringing these two together. So the work we did for the Climate Connection programme was in two key parts. One is we ran 5 grainy roundtables in Turkey, Nigeria, Indonesia, in the UK and in Colombia, working closely with the British Council, but we ran intergenerational roundtables, which ranged from working with cultural policymakers nationally right through to grassroots activists to uncover what was going on within climate action and the arts and culture, but also to allow for a conversation where people who are traditionally not power brokers or cultural policymakers were speaking to cultural policymakers and power brokers, and they were extraordinary conversations. Many of the issues that have come up this morning around the need for dialogue, for intergenerational and for youth-led voices, for safe space to speak, and for justice, environmental and climate justice, to centre into that conversation, were all reflected in all of those conversations. And the second thing we did was we did a global analysis of where climate policy and cultural policy spoke to one another at the national level, not the city or the organisational or the local. It was really saying, here we have 198 countries who have committed to keeping global temperatures within safe limits, and they're built into their climate policies nationally. Is this reflected in culture? And the short answer is not really. There's a lot of work to be done. But the good news is that we found that creative resurgence is everywhere. Artists, organisations, networks, partnerships, deeply connected to environmental issues. And that the cultural policy community is at a turning point. We also found that so much work is happening at the grassroots and the local level. Actually, all that needs to happen is policymakers need to speak to practitioners on the ground. The answers are there. We just need to ask for them. So very exciting piece of work, very exciting time. I really want to thank the British Council for being such great partners, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens next. Thanks, Alison.
Thank you very much, Alison. That's fantastic. And it's been brilliant working with all of our 3 partners here today, as well as all 7,000 that we've been working with around the world over the last couple of years. I don't know if we have time now. I might head back to Hadja, but one question we do want to explore as we finish off the programme today is how can we work together to ensure that our three sectors, the education sector, the language sector, English language sector, and the arts and culture sectors can work together to really create greater opportunities for collaboration and change across our disciplines. We're so fortunate at the British Council to have all three under our roof. So how can we really leverage and capitalise on that moving forwards? But back to you, Hadja, in the studio.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alison, and to all indeed three contributors for their insights and sharing their perspectives.